It didn't. This wasn't the plan, but this is going to be an all of a sudden Super Bowl show. We got the rewind coming up where we do the 2024 season rewind, the season that was the Super Bowl season. We got the Super Bowl today. Harry, you have a story about the Eagles potentially reaching a dynasty or at least a repeat. And we have Pro Football Focus again praising the Eagles. And the only person that didn't praise the Eagles this past week was a guy named Bryce Huff. We'll talk about all that and more on this edition of Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel.
Fly, Eagles, fly. It's the Eagles Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Philadelphia Eagles every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the city of brotherly love. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Eagles Squad show starting now.
And we do most humbly thank you for making Locked On Eagles Squad podcast your first listen today. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and get $20 off your first purchase on the Gametime app. Fellas, first, I'm not a big birthday guy. Harry, God bless you. You just had your birthday.
Yeah.
I hope it was the greatest time ever. I'm not a big birthday guy. Jason, I don't know about you. Not a birthday guy. But on that note, happy birthday, Philadelphia Eagles. 92 years old. You've never looked better. You have, in fact, been like fine wine, right? You've never looked better. 2 Super Bowl championships, 3 Super Bowl appearances in 8-7 years. This is fantastic. Philadelphia Eagles only get better with age there, Jason.
Yeah, it's weird because they are aging like a fine wine. They're getting better with age. Now, in the very beginning of their existence, they had some success in 48 and the championships in 1960. With Bednarik and Gracie Neal and those guys. But in modern Eagles history, when they reached their teens and into their 20s, they weren't so good. They did not have a good midlife. There was some success in there, but there was a lot of heartbreak. And that created a lot of the kind of the scar tissue of the Philadelphia sports fan, too. Look, Wing Bowl was created because the Eagles didn't get to the Super Bowl, and that had like a 25-year run. But they have now become a team that, I expect them to be in the mechs every year. Because,
as Robbie E. would say.
Yes, Bob Ellis would say, in the mechs. They would, because they have a general manager that just refuses to be constrained by a salary cap and has found loopholes and creative ways of dealing with it. You just expect them to be there right now. And look, I was no Jeff Lurie honk in the beginning, but you got to give the guy credit. When he said this is the gold standard, they weren't, but they've become. And you got to give the guy credit because of the way he hires people and lets them do their job. I think his impact on the community has been large. Like the Eagles Autism Challenge is a big, big thing. I think he's integrated himself into this community beautifully with the franchise. And it's something that everybody from here now is proud to say that they're a fan of because of the way they run their operation and the success that they're having.
Yeah, it's funny that I remember, back in the days, as do both of you guys, whenever Lurie's name would be talked about, it was always, he's a Boston guy or that guy from Boston. Or,
needs to sell the team.
Yeah, he'd rather have bought the Patriots, which it may have been true, and it probably was true for quite some time. But notice how nobody says that stuff anymore. And, it's almost like with the gold standard thing, I scoffed at that when he said it, but it's almost like he spoke it into existence.
Yep.
It's almost like, I play a lot of golf, and it's such a negative sport, meaning that it's so hard, and most times, your successes are fleeting, so that you sort of talk yourself into just focusing on the positives and forgetting about the negatives because they're always going to be there, and you sort of speak yourself into this positive frame of mind. That's sort of the way it sort of seems like what he did when he said that. I forget even what year was that when he did that.
That was probably like 04.
Was it way back there when the early part of the Andy Reid success?
maybe 07, like kind of after the 4 straight runs to NFC Championship games.
Okay.
And then they kind of recoiled again.
Yeah.
So
But it was like,
then.
this is not success. This might be better than we've ever had since 1960, but this isn't success.
Yeah.
Getting to championship games and losing is not, like he took a lot of heat for that.
Yeah, I said it was the tinfoil standard, not the gold standard.
Yes. That's very good. But yeah, I mean, the franchise, what is it, 1933 then? Is that,
Yep.
And is that year that they wore those Widener college colored
The
uniforms?
Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, you mean?
Was that year, 1933? Yeah,
Yeah,
33.
It was around that year because they were.
Wow.
I think they bought the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets and then converted to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's the way it went, and officially became. That's kind of what the celebration is for the Philadelphia Eagles' birthday itself. But you guys were talking about the struggles and the gold standard and all that stuff. I remember that a little bit earlier, even before multiple NFC Championship losses by Andy Reid. But we can confirm it later in the show. But man, I just think back to 1930. Who are these guys? Brand new sports team.
Right.
Yeah. They don't win for like 10 years. I don't think they have a winning record for like 10 years. And in like 1944, were guys saying, this just isn't working out, this NFL thing. This is just stupid. They should move on from it. Then they go to 3 straight NFL championships. They win two of them back.
Yeah. Was it 48 and 49?
Oh, what a great year.
I think 48 and 50 it was. Wasn't it?
Was it?
Or was it 2 in a row?
48 and 49, I think they won.
Yeah.
Okay.
They went to 3 in a row, but lost, I think, the first one. I remember we had tickets to the game. It was great. Then
Franklin Field.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra was blaring over the loudspeakers, man. Toes were tapping. And then they win again in 60. I believe it was the first year and last year of Chuck Bednarik. They won both years. But I think about that, and then I think about your own personal history with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll tell you guys, if you guys can share it as well. I distinctly remember, and maybe because I was a little older, I was like 10 or 11, and I grew up in a baseball and basketball house more than anything. And I remember watching my first Eagles game and watching Randall Cunningham and just thinking, this guy's amazing. Mm-hmm. And then he got hurt. And I remember Eric Allen, and we might have talked about this on the show before. I remember Eric Allen got the pick 6 later in the game in the Meadowlands against the Jets. I believe it was Boomer Esiason he picked off. He took it to the house, found Randall Cunningham, and gave him the football. And I just thought, oh, this is awesome. And like at the time, we had moved around a little bit, so I kind of had fleeting fandoms with different teams, But when I saw that moment, I was like, huh, what is it about this Eagles team? What is it about?
Got the
Eagles
hooks
team?
in you right there.
Yeah, I loved it.
Was that the Bryce Pop year where he got hurt in the first game against Green Bay, hit him on the knee?
I believe so.
And Jim McMahon came in as the backup at that time. Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
That was
that was
one of those years where we were saying going into it, like, this team is a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
And then Cunningham got hurt on the first, I think it was the first series of downs.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was. Yeah.
And Bryce popped the knee, and that was it for Cunningham's season. I don't remember like my first game. One of my first memories, just as a human though, came in 1980 when they went to the Super Bowl.
Oh wow!
Because I was 8 years old, and I remember being at like a Super Bowl party, and I remember Jaws and the beard and the whole thing. And Vermeil, like, I remember distinctly as well. I remember Tony Franklin because he was a barefoot kicker.
Right.
He was like, what?
And Wilbert Montgomery.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wilbert.
What was that? A 43-yard run against the Blue Jersey Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC Championship, and that was basically their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It really was.
And to lose to the first wild card team, to win a Super Bowl in Oakland. I remember Jim Plunkett and all of that. But like this fandom, like if you think about Philadelphia, the most recognizable entity or element of Philadelphia, it goes beyond a person, is the Eagles. Mm-hmm. Like they are the most recognizable. It's the first thing, like, we know this because we've lived here and we meet people in other cities and when you travel and stuff and you say where you're from, the first thing they bring up is the Eagles. Like they don't bring up Rocky first. They bring up the Eagles, or they don't bring up Joe Frazier
or Eagles fans.
Yeah. Just in total, right?
Right.
Because it all is a piece of the story. And like the love affair between the fan base, the protective nature of the fan base with the team. And I don't know what it's like in other cities. I haven't lived in other cities, so I don't know. But I know that the relationship between the fans and the team here is remarkable to me. And I haven't lived in Europe, but from everything described, it's like it is with soccer over there with MLS. So it's a huge commitment to be a fan.
Yeah, it really is wild. And the other thing that goes into it is, they ain't doing "Let's Go Phillies" chants at Eagles games. You know what I mean?
No,
they're not doing "Let's Go Flyers" chants at Sixers games. They're doing EAGLES Eagles at every game. That's
right.
Pretty much
at
the way
Phillies World Series games.
Yeah,
they did them.
When Zach Wheeler for the Phillies the other day had the complete game shutout, and they were actually chanting "Let's Go Wheeler," and I'm like, oh wait, are you even allowed to do "Let's Go" team chants of the team they're actually attending if it's not the Eagles? Yeah. But no, it is absolutely it is king. It's king.
Yep, and don't forget about
his own language.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like vernacular. Yeah.
Don't
forget about the Steagles in 1943 when Pittsburgh and Philadelphia merged their teams because they didn't have enough players to field two teams because of losing guys to serve in the war. The Steagles.
Yeah.
See, they should. Where's that merch? I would buy that merch too.
I would too. What does it look like?
I don't even know what it looks like.
I think it's only available in Breezewood, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Breezewood, where the motels are? All the
hotels. The motels
Somerset Breezewood exit?
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. There's St. Francis right around there as well.
Yeah,
man. That's where they sell a lot of that merch, right? Smack dab in the middle of the state.
Where that giant gas station is and half grocery store.
I spent a night there. I spent a night, not at the gas station, but at the motel. Superstorm Sandy. Remember that? I was driving across the United States. I was driving across Pennsylvania, started seeing the downed power lines, billboards, and it was like, perhaps I will stop here in tropical Breezewood.
They got motels that you pay by the hour out there.
That's
too.
Exactly right.
Oh no, yeah. I went full night.
Full night.
Shut eye.
Yeah. Put the
Harry,
quarters in for the vibrating bed.
Yeah, like Chevy Chase in Vacation.
Exactly.
This. If you haven't been to Breezewood, I believe we're describing it perfectly.
Mm-hmm. You don't need to go.
Just like it says on your Expedia app or whatever.
Yeah. Breeze right on by on the turnpike.
Yeah.
Get to the tunnel. Get to the Allegheny Tunnel.
So 92nd birthday to the Eagles. It really is the best possible time to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Harry, do you have a moment that you think about when you think back to early days of the Birds?
Early days of the Birds. Well, yeah, I mean,
for you,
they were terrible. I mean, they were just absolutely awful. Mike McCormick, I believe, was the head coach when I was a young kid and became immersed really in the NFL through NFL films and the one or two games on a Sunday that you could get on television where I lived. But that's back when they played 14 games and the team was, routinely 4-10. I mean, they were just awful. Roman Gabriel was the quarterback. There was a guy named Mike Barilla. And then, of course, comes, Dick Vermeil, who was hot off a Rose Bowl game with the UCLA Bruins. And he brought a lot of just newness, and he was just like a good-looking, visionary offensive guy that was just chomping at the bit to take his game to the NFL, and it really sort of, Then I remember him going to the playoffs against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back when they wore those orange creamsicle uniforms in like 1979, and it was like they were on the uptick. And then, of course, they go into the Super Bowl the year later and lost because their Super Bowl was beating the Dallas Cowboys at Veterans Stadium. I mean, that was almost like, I watched it on television. I was probably 15 years old or whatever I was then. That was like, it almost felt like they were going to have a parade after that game, just beating Dallas. Wow. And then you had to wait 2 weeks to play in New Orleans, and they'd already spent themselves. They were done. Yeah, and Vermeil had them so tightly wound. It was like, you can't do this, you can't do that. It was like trying to keep the team, from doing anything stupid, I guess, on Bourbon Street. And they were so tight. And the Raiders just came in there and just tore them apart. So those were my first memories of the Eagles. They were awful. And then, a new coach and a new sort of energy around the franchise, brought them some success.
They were awful off the field, too. Ownership was a mess.
Yeah.
You know, the threats of moving the team and the Eagles leaving. It was a tenuous relationship between the fans and ownership and the organization at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously when Lurie takes over and, you know, Ray Rhodes first, and then I mean, one of the great decisions he made was hiring Andy Reid.
Yeah.
It really was.
And that was an outside the box hire. I mean, to think of it right now.
He wasn't an OC. He was a
quarterback's coach. And,
Mike
you know,
Holmgren.
and a quarterback's coach for a quarterback that was difficult to coach and really
Brett
did
Favre.
a lot of his own things in Brett Favre. And all of a sudden you're like, who is this big heavy dude with the mustache, you know, coming in here with this, you know, apparently this binder of an offense where he went off about the long snapper for an hours on end with the owner. And you're like, man, this guy's that detailed about the stinking long snapper. I can't even name the player on the roster, you know?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, man, he came in there, and I remember the Hageman was the offensive lineman, I think, that he tore into in a practice early on with the sled. And it was like his way, I guess, of establishing, like, I'm the boss here. This is a new game. This is my team, and we're gonna do it my way. And he took it out on that guy, and that became a big story. And all of a sudden, you're like, man, you know,
George Hageman.
That was it. And then he drafted McNabb, and you know, McNabb
and
was
brought in
good.
John Runyon.
Yeah, right. Brought Runyon over
was the attitude.
from the Houston Oilers Tennessee Titan program. He was a nasty dude.
Yes.
I love that guy.
I do too.
I just loved him.
Like we've all gotten to know John Runyon too, like how docile of a dude he is, right?
Yeah.
Right. He was a mean son of a bitch on the field.
Oh,
Like he'd grab anything and twist it as much as he could, you know, poke you in the eye. He didn't care. He was
old school.
Nasty.
Knowing what to get away with was John's big line. It's not cheating, it's knowing what to get away with. Like that kind of you mentioned Andy Reid. You think about the history of the Eagles. This is a name that I don't think it's talked about enough. You're talking about quarterback Tommy Thompson. They win two world championships with him. The Bednarik era, and then you mentioned the Vermeil era, the Reid era. Those are kind of the four key eras of Eagles football that define the turnaround. But what's crazy about the Andy Reid era, it's that because of the Andy Reid era, the Eagles have had the success that they've had of the last 25 years. Like even their first Super Bowl, that's obviously Doug Peterson, a guy that Lurie got to know through Andy Reid. Then all of a sudden, Doug Peterson can't be here anymore. They go over to Nick Sirianni, obviously, but that era doesn't happen without the Peterson era. It's really a wild thing. And the only blip on the radar that of negativity really is the Chip Kelly era here in Philadelphia.
Forgotten couple of years.
A forgotten couple of years. Well, remembered in a negative, horrible way. But it is a wild thing to talk about the history of this team, and that right now we are living in an area that has in fact become the gold standard of the Super Bowl era of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's appreciate the time we're in right now type of thing.
Yeah, and what they really did under Andy Reid was they found their organizational identity as a team that's always going to be good up front on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's any mistake as to why they've been successful, because it's so important. A lot of times we would bag on Andy Reid and the regime, Tom Modrak at that time, in their drafts is because they were always drafting linemen, and drafting linemen was boring.
Right.
Like you always wanted that great wide receiver, or Ricky Williams, the guy that was in the running for the Heisman winner and the rushing, and they'd go with linemen. It was like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of like the Flyers were always drafted defensemen.
Yeah, never developed them.
And never developed them. But but you say that it was boring, the offensive lineman. It's not boring to me anymore.
No,
like I get as
you
cranked up about a left tackle as I do a wide receiver or almost a quarterback.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
Look, I think like because of like things with our technology today too, we appreciate linemen a lot more. We understand kind of their plight a little bit more, and we just looked at it maybe back in the days like meatheads up front just kind of pushing around, but the technique that's involved, and to do things like Baldy's breakdowns and stuff like that. Like, we know more about it now.
Well, that also started with Madden too, when he took
did.
into the booth. Like he loved the offensive line, and I remember those teams, in the '80s with the Redskins, with the Hogs. Like, that was the first team I ever remember where their brand was the offensive line.
Yeah,
If you think about it, the Hogs, it's like, and he talked about it. I knew every one of the players because, like of John Madden and Summerall doing the games, and they'd talk about these guys just like they were skill position players. So I think that's where that started to change.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Well, hey, look, as great as it's been with the Philadelphia Eagles, there was one complaint from a recent and rather quick Philadelphia Eagles career, Bryce Huff. Want to focus on that when we get back. Also talk about, you guys were just talking about the offensive line. More high praise. Look, if it's bad, we just tend to say they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But when Pro Football Focus says you're great, you go, oh, look at that. See, even Pro Football Focus thinks we're great. And they did when it came to this offensive line, despite a major question. And an Eagles chance at repeating, maybe even a dynasty. Harry was talking about a story in our group chat when it came to the Philadelphia Eagles and the odds of them even repeating as Super Bowl champions. We'll talk about all that and more when we return. This is Locked On Eagle Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. And right now, I want to tell you about the Gametime app. You guys want to go to the game, the concert, the comedy show? Gametime app has you covered. If you've ever decided at the last minute to go to a ball game with friends and family, Gametime is where it's at. You can get tickets at a great discounted rate, cheapest price, lowest price guaranteed, and then you can splurge on food, drinks, merchandise, whatever it might be. Maybe even a Steagles jersey if you could find somebody selling it. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get the first pitch, kickoff, tip-off, face-off, whatever it might be, or that concert or comedy show that you want to go to. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On NFL. So take advantage of all they're offering. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redemption code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Eagle Squad podcast. All right, we're jumping into this conversation, Harry, when it comes to Bryce Huff.
Yeah.
Bryce Huff said, I originally thought this was on the team's official website. It is not. It was a digital show interviewing Bryce Huff that covers the 49ers. And the digital show asked Bryce Huff kind of when you didn't know it was going to work out in Philadelphia. And from a schematic standpoint, from the moment he was asked to stand up and not put his hand in the dirt, which was in training camp, he said, this is going to be a long year. It's going to be a long year because he had a 3-year deal, $50+ million. Bryce Huff knew at that moment it wasn't going to work out here in Philadelphia. So he tells the show that he is going to ask his agent, hey, well, if we get an opportunity, I doubt it's going to happen during the season, but if we get an opportunity, we're out of here. I know it ain't going to be easy because of the contract, but I got this ain't happening. That happened in training camp.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to be out of Philadelphia early on. My first reaction, gentlemen, was, oh, you too? We wanted you out of Philadelphia early on in the process.
Mutually agree.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. So, all right, Howie Roseman, even though the wizard that he is, couldn't pull off anything during the season. We also had the writing on the wall as fans, as media, when the famous quote from Vic Fangio, the famous quotes from Vic Fangio about Bryce Huff, were talking about him like he was an undrafted free agent rookie that they just happened to bring in and not a $50 million plus free agent signing. So that also kind of lets you know that it was going to be short-lived here in Philadelphia. Hey, look, I wish Bryce Huff nothing but the best. It wasn't going to work out in Philly. It didn't work out in Philly. Him being able to move on is the best possible outcome for the Eagles. But I don't understand how you had Vic Fangio here,
Right.
then went out and got Bryce Huff, and were at all surprised that it wasn't going to work out here, Harry, because we knew what was going to be asked about him. We knew that he played the Y9 in North Jersey with the Jets, with the New York Jets. We knew that's what Robert Saleh did. Why was he ever brought here to Philadelphia?
That's a great question. I mean, this seems just so strange. I'm not surprised really that that's how short a period of time it took for him to realize like he's going to be asked to do something that he's not used to doing. But I'm just, how do you get to the point in free agency knowing that like a player, you're the agent for the player, like this is what he does. Like this is what he's done. This is what he's been good at. This is why you're interested in him. And now you're going to ask him to play, in a totally different way. I don't understand this at all. Like this just seems like
Square peg round hole.
Yeah, absolutely.
A near perfect season,
Right.
season, off season, all that. And
Right.
Jason, there's this one just
Hiring.
I'm going to go to a quote I heard from Phil Jasner, Hall of Fame Sixers writer. Every coach has a blind spot. I apply that to so many more people than coaches, Jason.
Yeah.
GMs, coordinators, whoever. They all got a oh, no. This will work. I'm telling you. Every person I've ever considered brilliant in my life, I have found they have highlighted a blind spot.
Yeah.
This is the blind spot for the Philadelphia Eagles' damn near perfect 2024 season.
Yeah, you're right. There's always a wart on the supermodel. like you always find something. And I've had about enough of the Huff between Josh Huff and Bryce Huff.
Right.
No more Huffs. I've had enough. So
It's a Huff-free society now.
yeah, I mean, look, I think sometimes a GM or coaches, they're arrogant and they see a guy and they go, well, maybe he hasn't done this, but the transferable skills are there, and or you find a guy that just has all the skill in the world, but doesn't seem to play with the motivation. They all think they can fix him because they see the skill set, and sometimes that works, and sometimes they're right, but oftentimes it doesn't. If it seems like a square peg into a round hole, it's because it probably is. So you're not playing to a player's particular strengths. So why pay him based on his strengths when you're not going to use him based on those strengths?
Right.
It is a blind spot. And look, you don't bat 1,000, but you got to limit the amount of times that you make a mistake like that. And the biggest thing is recognizing it was a mistake and moving on from it. So many people we worked for, they hire the wrong guy and then they just compound it and continue to back them because they go, it'll look bad that I hired the wrong guy. Well, it looked better if you hired the wrong guy and you got rid of him and recognized it. I got a few balls put in that vein.
I'm not going to say
when it comes to, are we even gonna, like, in all honesty, are we gonna remember Bryce Huff was here, or is this gonna be the thing in 5 years when the Super Bowl team comes together again for a reunion?
Yeah, I forgot him too. Yeah. He didn't play in the Super Bowl anyway.
Yeah, not invited to the reunion.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. That's right. Bryce Huff was on that. Oh man, that was terrible. But everything else was great.
Yeah, he's so overshadowed.
Oh, absolutely.
By Saquon. I mean, think about it. Saquon and AJ
Well,
Brown.
and that's why Howie doesn't get any grief for the pick,
Yeah.
for the signing.
Yeah, right.
Look, Howie gets away with some of that stuff because a lot of Howie's mistakes are self-inflicted. They really are, but he knows how to get out of them and overcome them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But he's had some practice because he made some mistakes that he's had to overcome.
Right. Now, on a more positive side of things, we've talked about Pro Football Focus, gentlemen, having the Philadelphia Eagles as the second best defensive line. The Philadelphia Eagles having the best linebacking core. What? Not used to saying that.
Yeah, that's weird.
And now the Philadelphia
since B&E and Seth Joyner back in those days, right?
And now, really is a surprise to no one, with one simple little caveat here. The Philadelphia Eagles, Pro Football Focus, the best offensive line in all of football.
Yeah.
Now, we might here, as Philadelphians, think, oh, well, of course, Jeff Stoutland, Stout University, all that. Okay, just a question. Who's their right guard?
Tyler Steen.
Yeah. Okay, even Tyler Steen, Drew Kendall, Kenyon Green, whoever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because it's a Jeff Stoutland offensive line that already has Pro Bowlers riddled throughout and all pro level talent riddled throughout. You're going to look pretty damn good with this offensive line, no matter who your right guard is. So this is, gentlemen, without it solidified who your right guard is. Pro Football Focus will be like, yeah, it's fine. Just they're good. They pass
You're
the
next
test
to
with
Lane
flying
Johnson.
colors.
Yeah, you
Shut
can
up
definitely
and-
get by
yeah.
when you have 4 out of the 5 that you're very confident with. And I seem to think that a kid that played for Alabama and is going to get coached by Jeff Stoutland at the NFL level will be fine anyway. I mean, he doesn't need to be a
Pedigree.
superstar right guard. He just needs to be okay, if you ask me, because the other 4 guys are really, really good.
See, that's the thing. Like when you have that question mark going in of just the right guard position, and you have one of the best linemen of his era in Lane Johnson next to him, and then on the other side, we know it's there and how good it is. You go, this guy's just in such a position to succeed because look, he's going to be targeted because he's the least experienced and the biggest question mark on the line, but he's in such a great position to succeed because there's so much good talent on that offensive line. And again, if you just listen to Jeff Stoutland and you're a sponge for learning, you're going to be good to go and you're going to make a lot of money as a pro.
I mean,
think about what Jeff Stoutland means to Lane Johnson.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Geez.
He's going to mean a gold jacket. That's what he's going to mean.
What did he mean to Jason Peters?
Right.
Think about because of him.
Think about the 31 other fan bases right now as they approach training camp. We're 2 weeks away to the day for when the team reports. Now, the Eagles are one of the earlier teams that report, but let's go and think about the other 31 fan bases, and they're like saying, "Boy, the biggest problem I got is who's our right guard." I mean, think right. about it in those way. That's a pretty good question mark to have.
Yeah, 99 problems, and that ain't one.
Right.
Yeah, in all honesty, like we'll talk about this, and we have talked about it up to this point, and it'll continue to be a conversation going into the season. But a lot of people say, "Oh, you got Eagles-colored glasses on. You're being a homer. And you can't just have a question mark at one of the offensive line spots." No, you absolutely can if it's the Philadelphia Eagles, if it's the talent that's already on the line, and if it's the offensive line coach that, hey, brought in Mekhi Becton, who'd never played guard, and you're like, oh, hey, tackle, guess what? You're now going to play guard. Okay, cool. And it works out phenomenally well for everybody last year, especially Mekhi Becton, who ends up getting a big deal somewhere else.
Where did he go, by the way?
Out the next one.
Where did he go?
I want to see Seattle, but I don't think that's right.
Was it Seattle?
I honestly, that's for whatever reason, that's the first thing that popped to mind. Was it another Arizona guy with Josh Sweat?
Sure.
It's possible.
No, the Chargers. He's with he signed a 2-year, $20 million contract with the Chargers that includes almost a $7 million guarantee and a $5 million signing bonus. So good for him. That you should cut a check to Jeff Stoutland for a little
tuition.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, thanks, Dean. Yeah, exactly. Jason, we almost had it. It was West Coast. We nailed it, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't worry about guys when they leave.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Brian Dawkins.
Fair enough. All right. When we come back, Harry, this is where it really gets down to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
There is a website, covers.com, I believe, did the numbers on this.
Yes.
Is that Stazak's boy that he always had on?
Yeah, I used to do some shows with the guy who runs Covers down in he's in Costa Rica, and he would never show his face. He was just
like
voice
the
only.
Singer, Harry.
Yeah.
That takes me back.
Like a wrestler that would wear a mask back in the day, right?
Oh, what do you call the Spanish wrestlers that wear the mask?
Oh, that's you're talking about the Mexican wrestlers.
Yes. Yes.
Luchador or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Luchador
or something like that. Yeah, I think you're right. Luchador. Yeah. Look at that. We're in the ballpark. When we come back, we'll talk about who is doubting the Philadelphia Eagles and the possible repeat after this quick break on Locked On Eagles Squad Show podcast. I don't want to skew negative, but I honestly, Harry, you sent us this earlier.
Yeah.
Read the story, and my first thought was they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But how many times? Like 1,000 times they do
10,000.
10,000 simulations.
Yeah. Covers.com. They do a supercomputer simulations of of all their games and the schedule, and they did 10,000 according to what I'm reading here. And their scathing prediction, as it's detailed, is that the Eagles are projected. Now that the term is projected to have a modest 9-8 record and just a 63.5% chance of making the playoffs. Their Super Bowl odds, according to these projections and the simulations, is 5.44%.
Wow.
Yes. For what it's worth. Okay.
Now, here's the overwhelming question I have. Are guys getting hurt, or is the rest of the league catching up to them? Like, do they
any
play?
simulation has to assume health, I would think.
Well, in the schedule,
right?
I mean, the schedule is the schedule. It's a much tougher schedule when based upon teams that made the playoffs the previous year. Okay.
But I can't in any way, shape, or form acknowledging that the schedule, when it came out, we all talked about it. I still have it here. When we talked about the schedule, what was the word we all used? Unrelenting.
Right.
It is unrelenting.
Right.
I get it, but this Philadelphia Eagles team is still pretty damn stacked. So I can't see the Eagles going through that schedule with anything less than double digits in wins. And this site's got them at 9, gentlemen. 9.
Right. Yeah, it's almost absurd. Like, what is in their calculus, their equation that's sinking the Eagles down? Is it heavily weighted to passing yards?
Well, one of the things that they mention here is something that I've been talking about ever since we started to do this Eagles Squad podcast, and that's the third wide, the depth chart on the wide receiver position beyond the first two guys. They say a critical vulnerability. The Eagles offense soars when Brown and Smith dominate the field, but behind them, question mark. The depth chart inspires all the confidence of a Philly fan facing a Dallas kicker in a clutch moment. Now, I don't really understand what that means.
I don't know what
but
that
then
means,
they go on to say Johnny Wilson, question mark, showed little as a rookie. Aeneas Smith, question mark, struggled badly. Free agent addition Terrace Marshall Jr. hasn't panned out elsewhere. And if the injury strikes the wide receiver unit, Hurts' aerial attack could stall quickly. So that's one thing.
Do you happen to know who they have as going to have the best record by any chance?
No, I do not. This is just
the Eagles. Okay.
This was on an Inside the Eagles blog, and it's pretty much Eagles centric.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they just did the Eagles because they hate the Eagles. I think that's the only reason.
And they knew that we'd react.
Right.
Right.
There was a thing that came out today. Jimmy Shapiro sent it out for the NFL passing yardage leader odds going into this season. The odds favorite at plus 550 is Joe Burrow. No, not a shock.
Right.
Dak Prescott, because he's a Cowboy, is number 2 at 9-1.
Well, plus he gets Pickens in addition to CeeDee Lamb.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then you have Goff and Mahomes at 10-1, Mayfield at 11, Brock Purdy at 12. But when you look down and you go, well, where is Jalen Hurts? He's at 100-1 with Bryce Young, Cam Ward, and Shader Sanders.
Shador,
whatever it is.
His friends call him Shador.
I call him Slim Shady.
Yeah, cops call him slow the hell down.
Yeah. So like this perception about passing yards, maybe that's the weight in it. But the fact of the matter is this is Vegas and the best odds to be the Super Bowl champion. There's 3 teams at plus 650, and the Eagles are one of them.
Right.
So this guy's computer model, he needs to geek up a little bit because his computer model is flawed.
Well, yeah, maybe covers.com is getting too much Eagles action.
Yeah,
to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Stop betting. Please stop betting. Please. No, seriously, stop betting, please. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, though, about all the odds that are out there right now, and we're still in the full season of lists, I'm really having a hard time with this, fellas. Probably maybe more so than ever because Jalen Hurts has now answered every question that has been asked of him and did that to the tune of a Super Bowl championship, a Super Bowl MVP after already being a runner-up in the MVP voting, after already taking his team to a Super Bowl. Like, why are there so many participation trophies given out to quarterbacks who did not reach the mountaintop yet? Like, why is it already assumed on a lot of people's list that Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert is better than Jalen Hurts?
Well, they're better throwers of the football. I mean,
Right.
This we can
and
agree.
that's the glory.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But
Not
I
winners,
want a
though.
guy. I want a guy who's going to win.
Right,
I want a guy who I know is going to have what it takes in the most crucial moment. Like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
To be dominant. And if they would have eked out the Super Bowl by a field goal at the last minute, I could understand the questions. If Jalen was like 98 yards throwing or whatever, and then 3 tush-push touchdowns, I could get it then. And Saquon absolutely went off. I could get it then. But the star of the show was Jalen Hurts on the biggest stage. He's done it. Yeah. Everybody else is like, well, if he had this, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike.
I'll tell you why. At least why I think the national people do this to this current Eagles team is because Saquon Barkley, your running back, ran for over 2,000 yards. Okay, number one, which doesn't happen very often at this level, especially with that position and where the game has gone. And number two, the tush push. Yep. If people look at the Eagles and say, well, that play has been questioned whether it's legal or not. If you take that away, what is this Eagles team?
And it's not a talent play.
Right. I think it is kind of a talent play.
People don't view it that way.
Right. But I mean, this quarterback squats how much weight?
600 pounds.
Not, Joe Burrow ain't doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But even to that point, and I understand that's what the national media puts out there.
Yeah.
But even to that point, okay, so I got an automatic touchdown play with a quarterback, and that goes against him.
That's a negative. That's a negative.
Yeah. That's a negative. Yeah. He had been to a Super Bowl without Saquon Barkley. That apparently is also a negative. Like I thought going to Super Bowls, winning one, and an MVP was a good thing.
Yeah.
Turns out not if everyone else around you is pretty damn good too.
Right.
Like that's the thing that just drives me crazy.
Oh yeah.
Because if everybody else did have these pieces, and Joe Burrow, it's not like he's got squat in Cincinnati. He's got some talent around him.
He does, but he'll never have more because that ownership is cheap. So he's going to have to leave. Seriously, he's going to have to get out of Cincinnati if he's ever going to win a Super Bowl.
Right, but he's been to the mountain. He's been to the mountain, but wasn't able to get to the top because he lost to a team that Jalen Hurts just beat in the playoffs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things that's wild to me.
You started out, Mark. You said, Hurts has answered the questions. He didn't answer them verbally. He answered them with his actions.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like his answers have been there, done that, did it, and shined in the biggest moment. So, I mean, I think it's just one of those guys. It's easy to make him a target because it's an easy conversation in an engagement farming click world that we live in. I think he's a victim of that. I honestly believe that because Eagles fans react to the national media. Look, guys like Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright have been doing this for years. I mean, one day they say the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. The next day is they're going to have trouble to make the playoffs this year just to get a reaction and engagement farm. That's what they do. That
guy you just brought up, Nick Wright, is the only guy that causes me to reach for the remote to change the channel more than Jason McIntyre, and both of them are on the same network.
Yeah, he is painful.
Yeah,
and there's no guy that looks dumber with long hair.
Oh yeah,
was he bald? Was that a piece, or did he have a shaved head?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Son of a bitch.
If so, Jason, he's out of the bald community. He's betrayed the bald community. I want him not. He's out of the meetings. No more.
If you got knots on your head, me and Farzetta do not let you join the bald union.
That's correct.
You gotta have a nice dome,
Yes. Yeah. Show me your membership card, damn it. Show me your membership card.
Union dues are paid up.
All right, I want to give this full time because today is the last installment of our Eagles Rewind, gentlemen. Wow. The season that was 2024.
It took longer than the actual season.
It did.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And we needed it.
Personally, I don't think I've ever had a prediction that I regretted more than my prediction surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles going into the Super Bowl. Like if I had hindsight, oh man, I would have rolled this one out. I'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On Eagles Squad Show podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna. Gentlemen, I think we all do it. Whatever game it is, Super Bowl especially. you run through the game in your head and you say, how do the Eagles win this game? How do the Eagles lose this game? What's the best way for them to win it? You know they're going to be gunning on Saquon Barkley. How do they stop this? How do they lose? I did not have there was no way the Eagles lost this football game in my eyes.
Right.
There's no way they were going to lose this football game in my eyes. But when I kept working through it, I was like, this version of the Kansas City Chiefs does not belong on the same football field as this version of the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought the Eagles were going to blow them out. I got God's honest truth before I made my official on camera, on microphone prediction. I'm going through the game, and I'm like, it factored in my opinion, playing in a different stadium than the last time, different defense than the last time, much different offense than the last time. This was going to be an Eagles blowout over the Kansas City Chiefs in my mind. The regret is that I didn't go with that.
You didn't go with the gut.
I didn't go with the gut because I said, all right, hold on. You're watching, you've got too much Philly blood in you. You're too much Disney-colored glasses, rose-colored glasses. You're being a homer. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Steve Spagnuolo. It's Andy Reid. It's all this. They're going to find a way to be in this game at the end of it. And, well, we know how that went. I think I predicted a 33-27 Eagles victory, and obviously it was far from that. Did you guys have a good read on this game going into it? Did you think it was going to be close? How did you see it before it played out?
Well, I ran 10,000 simulations of this game a few days prior to the actual game because I knew I'd be getting ready to do the postcast here with Jason. And I had the Eagles winning, but I did not have them winning by 18 points. And really, the win by 18 points is a mirage because this was 34-0 at one point. I mean, this was an absolute beatdown. And then they allowed, Worthy and Mahomes to put up some numbers and points and yards and so forth that made it skew a little bit differently. But this was one of the most dominant performances. This kind of reminded me of some of the Super Bowls that I watched growing up, which were very lopsided and not very competitive, not very entertaining, at least from a competition standpoint. If you liked one side and you had the right side, you loved it. But if you didn't, or you were sort of, you didn't have a horse in the race and you just wanted a good football game, you rarely got it back then. This was this was a great football game for people who like the Eagles, but for people looking for an even game and, with the two best franchises going at it, you didn't get it. And I was fine with that. This defense allowed 35 yards of offense to Mahomes' crew in the first half. 35 yards. They turned him over twice. One went to the house. I mean, this was an absolute just curb stomping is what it was.
Yeah. As Tony Bruno once called it, a biblical
beatdown. Yes, yes.
It was.
Boat raced him. He'd always say that, too.
Yeah. They got a boat race him here. I mean, I went into the game feeling good because we had this, compounding feeling like this team was just something special. But being a Philadelphia sports fan, you still have the scar tissue. You're like, Jesus, this team's really good. Mahomes and, they've won Super Bowls.
Kelsey's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. You're up against the best, like you were when the Eagles won it and beat the Patriots in 2018 in February of that year. So you go, are they going to be able to do that again and beat an absolute wagon? So you were a little nervous about it. Anybody that thought they were going to go up 34-0 in this game and look like varsity versus JV, and that's what it looked like. The Eagles absolutely bullied them from the moment the clock started. And the game was not even as close as it appeared because they got some garbage at the end.
And it wasn't even because of Saquon Barkley. That's the crazy
yard
thing about it. It's just bizarre. I mean, they sacked Mahomes a bunch of times in the first half. DeJean had the pick six. Hurts had a couple of big plays, 20-yard plus plays to Goddard. Dotson, of all people. Yep. A.J. Brown had a big one. Baun had a big interception deep in Kansas City territory.
That was how it looked, too,
They
Harry.
scored 2 plays later, to A.J. Brown. And it's 24-0 at half, and now you're thinking, the Philadelphia people in us is saying, well, Atlanta had a 28-3 lead. This isn't over. So, they come out. Kansas City has the ball to start. And they sacked Mahomes 2 times on that opening drive to start the second half.
And he looked bewildered.
The defense held on a 4th and 4 near midfield. And the next play, and this is what you got to love about Sirianni and that bunch, is they're like, you know what? We're going for the jugular right now. This game ends on this play. And they hit a bomb to Devontae Smith for a 46-yard touchdown, and it's 34-0. And you knew it was over then. They weren't losing that game.
Rocking chair ride.
They owned it. And listen, I mean, we've seen every mic'd up. We've seen every, behind the scenes, all that stuff on the sidelines, all that stuff. And one of the things I loved about it was, I think there was at one point where Nick Sirianni was like, all right, we can do this. It's game. And Jalen Hurts like, dude, like, calm down. Like, no, like, hold on. We got to, the whole time also Saquon Barkley on the sidelines being like, every big moment, he's like, hey, stay right here. Stay right here. Stay in the game. Nothing's over yet.
Yeah.
Just keep that mindset. Don't take anything too lightly. There was also one other moment. I mentioned Patrick Mahomes. I mentioned the coaching staff and all that. The referees. That was a big storyline going into the game. Can the Eagles not only beat the Chiefs, but can they beat the referees? And do you remember the first controversial play of the game?
The offensive pass interference on A.J. Brown?
Yep.
Exactly. That I think it was a fly route down the sideline.
Yep.
Jalen Hurts lets it rip, and they call offensive ticky-tack pass interference.
Yeah.
And I think everyone is like, here we go.
Yep.
Here we go.
Yeah, Romo's like, here we go, Jim.
There was a hit on I think Patrick Mahomes, or no, there was a hit on Patrick Mahomes that didn't get called shortly thereafter, and you're like, maybe not. I think Jalen Carter got away with something there. Yeah. You mentioned the sacks coming out of halftime, Harry.
Yep.
I think Jordan Davis and Josh Sweat, I believe, came up with sacks coming out of halftime.
Yeah, that or Milton Williams might have had one too then.
Milton Williams had one of the to me, that was just the Eagles just saying, there's going to be no second half comeback here by the Chiefs.
We're ending your hope now.
Yeah. We're still going to own this game.
Yeah, we're going to be the same team we were in the first half that we were in the second half that we were in the first half. And a lot of times you can see a game flip on a halftime like that. But they were showing no signs that they went into that halftime. They got the proper way of rest and reset for the second half and came out with the same vicious intensity. I mean, they were so good in that game. And it's weird because the 2 Super Bowl wins that we, from the February 2018 and this year are so similar in some ways, and they're so different in other ways. Obviously going in without Wentz and you go in with Foles in that one and the backup and you're riding that story. And the way they won that game, with the running backs, Jay and Blunt and all that stuff, and the wide receivers you had, and then this one, having Saquon was just such an X factor. And when you went in, you said, well, if they're going to win this game over this team, Saquon's going to have 125 and 2, and 2 touchdowns, and probably 35 yards catching the ball and a couple of receptions. And he had 57 yards.
Yeah, on 25 carries, I think it was like
it's
two
a lot.
yards a crack. It wasn't good. Yeah,
but the game played into that too because they get the big lead, and they could be a little safe in ball control. The other thing is how much they controlled the ball, and they owned it.
Yep.
So
and the kicker was good. He kicked 4 field goals. He was
worried about.
He was a big question mark coming into that game.
Yeah.
At least he was for me.
Yeah, we talked a lot of Jake Elliott.
Year. Yeah,
we talked a lot about Jake Elliott throughout the season. Certainly. Yep. There was the interception by Jalen Hurts to start the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Then Patrick Mahomes looked a little rattled. I remember he threw at the feet. He rushed a throw to Travis Kelce. That was a quick 3-and-out by the Chiefs. Eagles get the ball back. They get a field goal, 48-yard field goal, Harry, to your point, by Jake Elliott. They go up 10-0. Then Patrick Mahomes sacked by Josh Sweat for a loss of 4. Patrick Mahomes sacked by Sweat and Hunt for a loss of 2. Patrick Mahomes pick 6 to Cooper DeJean for the 17-0 Eagles lead. It was like, wow, this is really happening. And the serendipity, fellas, of Cooper DeJean coming up with the pick 6 on his birthday. Like it was just like, everything's going to go the Eagles' way today. Okay, this feels pretty damn good. This feels pretty special, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it was a lot. The whole season was a lot of fun after they came back from their bye week.
Yeah.
A lot of question marks going into that bye week, but when they came back from that bye week, it was like something happened, and it was a wild ride. It was just a fun ride the whole year, and I hope they can repeat it, because sign me up for that as much as you can.
Look, you can't acquire health in the offseason. Right. You can't sign that. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the only thing that I see keeping the Eagles from repeating. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. a magic potion to keep everybody healthy. Way to go, Howie. But I got to say this. You remember the story that unfortunately ended up getting shut down by Vic Fangio, the story that Jalix Hunt put out there saying that Vic Fangio called us all in after the Super Bowl and said, see this number here in the second half? That's unacceptable. Remember that story?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Vic Fangio said, that never happened. That never happened. Now, maybe Vic Fangio just wants to keep a lid on it. Mm-hmm. No witnesses. I don't know. But here's one story I can tell you that did happen. So the Eagles, unfortunately, they're up 34-0. Then they allow 22 points there in the second half. Right after the Eagles Super Bowl parade, I'm in Center City. I don't know if I've told you guys this before, but I'm in Center City, and I'm hanging out with some friends, and I was off the clock at this point, and we're having a couple of drinks. It's
drinking,
enjoying a cigar, yeah, having a good time, and enjoying the moment. And this guy walks by that just looks really familiar, and he's smoking a cigar, and he's got an Eagles Super Bowl jacket on and all that. And my buddy goes, oh, hey, Jalix, thanks for today, man. And then I was like, that's who it is. It's Jalix Hunt. So in my, I'm not going to say drunken state, but I will say
celebratory,
somewhat inebriated,
little tipsy, libation or two. I just blurred out, Jalix, that first touchdown on Holmes was bull. And I just I included the second syllable of that. And he just took a puff of his cigar and he goes, doesn't matter now. And then walked in and I was like, he's right. It doesn't matter. But it was still bull. So if you go back to the first touchdown, if you remember, there was, I think, an offensive pass interference that didn't get called. But also right before that, Patrick Mahomes has the scramble where there is no doubt in my mind, gentlemen, that he was over the line of scrimmage before he let that ball rip.
Yeah.
Before he threw the ball, exactly.
Yeah, but you have to have your whole body. Was his whole body over like the back?
I thought he was clearly across the line.
Okay, it was close. It was definitely close.
Yeah,
that would have been a big story had the result changed.
Sure,
but because of the result, like we don't even have to beat down the doors on stuff like that.
Doesn't matter now.
Yeah, damn right.
Now I sent you guys in the text chain the only picture that I could find of what appears to be the 1943 Steagles and their uniforms. It's sort of like they combined Pittsburgh with the lower half, and then the upper half was Eagle green. It's weird. It's like they had yellow or gold pants with yellow socks, green Kelly green looking jersey with a white stripe all the way down the sleeve, and then like an Eagles looking helmet. Do you see that?
Yeah, and first off, ugly.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
It's not. There's
hard to put these colors together.
Yeah, it's not good. But I mean, the jersey's kind of cool.
The jerseys are kind of cool.
You know, with the big stripe down it. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it's a weird era of jersey.
Yeah, yeah.
The only player whose face I can really see is that Mike. Why is Mike Dunleavy wearing an Eagles jersey?
Yeah, it looks like Mike Dunleavy. It does.
I don't know why that's in my brain, but yeah.
Could you imagine some of the teams had the Eagles and Steelers been a combined?
Oh,
like if you put those two teams together, like in
my God,
Jerome Bettis, Palomalu, and Roethlisberger when the Eagles were struggling to find a quarterback, and going all the way back Franco and some of the.
Oh, there's never a linebacker problem in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
we would not know a linebacker problem.
No,
it would be unbelievable. Like the combined teams of Pennsylvania pro football would be unbelievable. I don't think any state would beat it that has two teams, LA, New York. Maybe New York gives you a good run.
Yeah. No, you're probably right.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because even like in California, San Francisco, with the 49ers, like who's teaming up with them at that time? That's pretty wild.
Not the Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the Oakland Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers, but you didn't have the Rams were in St. Louis at the time.
Right.
Wow.
Wild, man.
Yeah,
Wild.
pretty crazy.
Now, who sent this picture of Rex Ryan?
I sent that.
I was going to say, it's like, wait, what?
I saw that. Rex Ryan, Sage Steele tweeted out Rex Ryan's T-shirt.
Just here to bang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's hilarious.
And he's
with
got
a picture of a firecracker.
Yeah.
With a picture of a firecracker, and he's wearing the Apollo Creed shorts.
I love
Or
the
I
shorts.
should say, Rocky IV shorts. He beats the Russian. He beats Drago.
Yeah, Ivan Drago. I must break you.
By the way, I don't want to spoil that for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, I told you the ending.
Spoiler alert.
Fellas, it's been awesome. Talking about our memories of the Philadelphia Eagles, 92 years. That was fun. Talking about Bryce Huff for the fleeting moment that he was here. Reliving the Super Bowl, bragging about the Eagles' offensive line, despite a question mark at the right guard spot. Doesn't matter, according to Pro Football Focus. We hope you guys like and subscribe to Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. That's like and subscribe to Locked On Eagles YouTube channel during the season. Make sure you guys are following Harry and Jason for all your post-cast needs. And throughout the weeks, throughout the days, Louis DiBiase has you covered for Locked On Eagles daily content. For Locked On Eagles Squad Show, I'm Mark Farzetta. That's Harry Mays, Jason Martinez. Back with you guys on Thursday. We'll be just a week and a half away from Eagles training camp. We'll break it all down and more. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. See ya.